I went into Busch Gardens, Williamsburg with mixed expectations. The park is undeniably gorgeous, and the theming is great, but it often gets left out when talking about parks with the best coaster lineup in the United States. It shouldn't be. Busch Gardens has one of the most well-rounded coaster lineups, headed up by the star-studded Pantheon and supported by a team of all-stars, which in my eyes makes Busch Gardens an absolute must-visit for any enthusiast. In today's video, I'll break down my experience at Busch Gardens Williamsburg and give the case as to why I think this park deserves more hype surrounding its coaster lineup. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. Let's dive in. The day was looking to be super rainy, and I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to get on all the coasters, and sure enough, that was the case. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. My first impressions were great. This park is beautiful, and truly deserves the title of most beautiful theme park. The landscaping is absolutely incredible, and the park is so well taken care of, and the theming of the buildings and all of the different areas is so well done. The entry experience was smooth, and we headed straight for the new for 2022 Intamin multi-launch Pantheon. Going in, I didn't have the highest expectations for this ride. I had ridden similar elements on different coasters, and nothing really stood out. The theming was bland, and the ride actually broke down for about 40 minutes when I was about to get a front row ride. Anyway, I pulled down the new generation Intamin lap bars, and these are just great. They're very comfortable, and they don't come down hard during the ride. We rolled out and hit the first launch into the Sidewinder. This inversion was great, with sustained laterals and hang time. The switchbacks to the main launch section were unique, but perhaps a few bunny hills would have been better. Anyway, the first launch is great. Everyone was praised for a rollback, and on Pantheon you get one every time. I heard how unexpected the pop of backwards airtime was, and even though I expected it, the strength and power of this hill still caught me off guard. The view off the backward spike is fantastic, and I wish I'd gotten a back row ride just to experience this moment. The train flies down the spike, and this time the hill delivers some more traditional pop of ejector airtime before you rise up the top hat and are yanked down the beyond vertical drop. The low to the ground turn, followed by the outer bank, followed by the 0G stall, is one of the greatest sequences of elements on any coaster. The ride doesn't feel incomplete, but maybe a little short, but I don't have a big problem with it. Overall, Pantheon blew me away. I thought it would be good, but none of the elements seemed original or stood out. But wow, I was wrong. The elements on Pantheon feel completely different than the same ones on other coasters. I was so blown away, in fact, that Pantheon earned its solid spot in my top 5. The weather was starting to get bad, and I got a rainy ride on Apollo's Chariot, so it was definitely not running at its best. I was a little nervous because I heard this ride runs completely differently in the rain, and it's not a good thing. But overall, I was really impressed. The floater airtime was great, and the setting is hands down one of the best of any coasters. I love the B&M clamshell restraints, and I think I'm able to uniquely appreciate this ride and other good hypers because we just don't have them on the West Coast. I was very impressed with Apollo, and it nagged a spot in my top 25. Now the rain was really coming down. I got a second rainy ride on Apollo before everything shut down. We sought shelter in the Verbolton queue for about an hour, and the weather cleared up and the rides reopened. I was hyped for Verbolton, just because it seemed like a very unique ride. The trains were pretty comfortable, and the ride starts with a slow series of winding turns into the Black Forest before the ride rockets into the indoor section. This was great, but I was expecting a little bit more of an out-of-control feel. It just felt like a bunch of helixes, probably because it is. Anyway, the train comes to a stop, and I was very excited for this part, a drop track. And it was good, but it kind of just felt like a really short drop tower. The train launched out of the station and onto a bridge reminiscent of where the Big Bad Wolf used to stand, and you drop down into a curve along the Rhine River before hitting the brakes. This ride was great, just not as great as I expected. It grabbed a spot in my top 25, but I was hoping it would be more of a top 10 or at least a top 15 coaster. Clouds were coming back, and the weather said that once it started raining, it wasn't going to let up until 6 or 7, so this was really the last chunk of time to get on any coasters. I went straight for Griffin, but I got a little lost. Plus, this ride is on the other side of the park, so I think I wasted at least a solid 20 minutes trying to find it. Anyway, this is easily the best B&M dive that I've done. I really appreciate the traditional B&M over-the-shoulder restraints because they allow for maximum airtime on that drop. The The rest of the ride is alright, but it's kinda weird how the second half is basically a smaller version of the first half. The ride was good, but unfortunately just missed out of my top 25. I rushed to Invader, but the ride was already closed because of impending weather. We sat in the queue for a little, seeing if the ride would reopen, but there was no hope. We decided to cut our losses, buy a shirt, and leave the park in order to have time to pay the nation's capital a quick visit. Overall, I was very impressed by this park. Its coaster lineup is very underrated, and the landscaping is drop dead gorgeous. Sorry this video took so long. I've just been crazy busy, and the regional script somehow got deleted, but stay tuned for a Carowinds wrap up next week. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video.